us to discuss this and the Nigerian oil and gas sector as a whole, I have Muyiwa Lawal. He's a business manager in power and services at Diamond Bank. Muyiwa, it's great to have you on the show. Now, of course, let's start by talking about this acquisition. Give us some more insight.
Morning, Didi. Thanks for having me. My understanding of the Oando transaction so far is that, yes, you're right, it's been fully underwritten. There are firm commitments from all the participating banks. But in terms of financial closure, that is yet to take place. But for all intents and purposes, the transaction, we could call it a done deal. When we look closely at the transaction, one of the things you see is that the actual equity consideration put in by Oando by way of their shareholders' equity and the proceeds of the rights issue they did earlier on this year accounts for about $460 million. My estimation of the final consideration price for this for the assets that are going to be acquired should be about $1.4 billion. That indicates a gearing ratio of about 3 to 1 debt to equity. So what we can see here is sound financial management and I would say analysis from both the sponsor and the participating banks. So all things being equal, I think that it's a good deal, and shareholders will be in for adequate rewards for their investment.
I was just going to ask, what does this mean for Oando's shareholders? I mean, we know of the ownership issues that the company has had this year, and also in relation to the rest of the stocks in the oil and gas sector, Oando hasn't, performed very well.
I think the news that we heard earlier on this year in regards, in the British media was rather unfortunate and kind of a distraction to Oando, in my opinion. But for shareholders, if you look at what this means, if you look at the assets the Conoco assets that are being acquired, the fundamentals are sound from all indications. The technical due diligence was rigorous, and in my opinion, what I would say is that if Oando is actually able to realize the commercial production and production profiles that these assets indicate, then shareholders will benefit adequately from this investment that's been undertaken by the parent company.
It will be interesting to note that apparently once this deal is over, that the daily production will actually increase from 4,500 barrels per day to 45,000 barrels per day. So would you say that the market has already priced in this acquisition, especially since it's something that we've been talking about, for a while now? I mean, we know that we didn't know that this was going to come up.
Well, partially, but not completely. The reason I say that is when you look at these oil and gas assets, they have a pretty long production lifespan, some 20 years, 30 years of actual vibrant production. So what I will say is, yes, once the transaction is announced, there will be a bump in terms of the stock market price, and that's to be expected. But, like I said, these assets will be producing actively for another 15, 20 years. So it's hard to say that it's been fully priced in. I think that there's still some room for growth and upside for people who actually acquire or buy into Oando at this point in time.
Now, talk to us about the opportunity that exists for other indigenous companies that are wishing to position themselves as international players.
Well, it's an interesting time in the local market when you look at it. This transaction has a total, the ticket size is over $1 billion. If you look at what's going on in other, when other IOCs, the other IOCs that are divesting their assets, you look at the Chevron assets, there have been bid prices put in that exceed the 1 billion trench mark. It appears that SPDC is about to divest some assets on some of their Eastern assets, Eastern Bloc assets. So, I think that it shows the level of sophistication that exists in the market. The financial market is much deeper than we actually sometimes give it credit for. But I think, that you have a combination of promoters, business promoters that know what they're doing, and you have a market that can harness the potential, and what you have is, in my opinion, a good result. And
Now,
I think it's the first of many.
Now, let's talk about the power sector. We're aware that new IPPs that have come up in Lagos State, of course, one being the 10.4 megawatt Alausa power plant, which was built by Oando Gas and Power. Now, we are aware that these IPPs generate more than is required for their captive market. We also know that they're not allowed to sell the excess power to the national grid. So what is the expected impact of the IPPs in bridging the power deficit?
Well, I think it's also interesting times when you look at the power sector. We know that combined production combined generation is less than actual, is about 3,005. That's at its peak. Even with the sale of the PHCN assets, the generation assets, if all those assets are producing at optimal capacity, we'll still have in the region of less than 12,000. For a country that needs somewhere between, some estimates will say somewhere between 20,000 to 40,000 megawatts to actually power us. I think that what Lagos State has done in combination with Oando is pretty innovative.
I
what
agree.
you see is that the power that's previously been used up by Lagos State can now be pushed to other areas in the states and in essence around the country. So from all estimates, you have about 160 diesel generators that are going to be taken offline as a result of the power that's going to be brought online by the Alausa power plants.
Okay.
And it's not only limited to the government. I believe that the surrounding
Areas would benefit as well.
Neighbors would also benefit,
It
exactly.
would be very interesting.